Hi guys, in the previous episode our main character went to school. It was the first day of school, but on the way there he met some weird creature with a fox mask, a fox or a human, we don't know. There was a choice to take candy or not, and we took. Then in school he got bullied by a classmate. There was also a choice to punch him or not, and we punched him. And after school we also got a choice to go with his classmate girl that looked normal and this weird creature girl that looked like a fox. And I decided to take a safe route and go with a normal girl, but maybe it was a bad choice, honestly. On the way to her home, his classmates surrounded them and then they started bullying him again. And I think I made some wrong choices there. I picked to put on a mask and then they just made fun of him. He returned home safely, thankfully. And during the time when he was sleeping, an owl came to their house and he and his sister witnessed it. And I think that was it. So let's see what's going to happen next. Episode 3 on End the Wolf's Grey Fur Will Stand. He's the one who hated Baburin. You think he did it? I've heard he's a weirdo. I hurriedly rubbed my glasses. The glasses. Semyon was clutching them in his fist while I was getting beaten up. And in just a couple of hours, this lost item was lying on the ledge of my window. It was hard to imagine that Sema suddenly got guilty conscious and returned my glasses in such a strange way. I was shocked but kept walking toward the classroom, accompanied by nasty whispers all around me. That photo still stood before my eyes. Semyon has gone missing. Semyon is gone. His fat fingers will never get to my throat. His signet ring won't smash into my chin. He'll never humiliate me again. Wasn't that what I wished for? On the other hand, did I really wish Semyon to become a murky stain on the notice board? He was still someone's son or grandson, and he went through the same struggles as me. Did I really wish for my unseen companion to dispatch him in such a brutal fashion? I didn't know the answer. Or I was just scared of it. Nonetheless, school still had something nice about it. Polina, the girl with the violin, was like a mountain spring, like well water that you gulp down, pressing your lips against the sink outer ring of a bucket, and can't ever get enough. What if I make her one of the characters in the story I'll draw? The protagonist will save her from terrifying monsters. As soon as I thought of monsters, a bunch of my classmates slid down the rails, smirking like the xenomorphs from the Alien. I immediately felt larvae of fear writhe in my stomach. I didn't want to cross paths with Romka and Basha after what happened yesterday, especially since Semyon suddenly went missing. I entered the classroom and went toward the last row. All of the chatter suddenly died down, so I walked there in complete silence. It felt like my classmates pushed and poked me with their stares. They carefully observed my every move. They looked at me with a mortifying mix of pity, ridicule, and derision, like a scientist looks at an ugly representative of newfound species of worms. I stared at the desk with a huge pile of library textbooks on top, my fists clenched. It felt like I was the one who disappeared in that snowy forest and my desk was finally used for something worthwhile. Semyon's empty chair stood in front of me. The chair that once belonged to Vova gathered dust somewhere in another classroom. Every boy my age I knew had something like this in his arsenal. Powder firecrackers that blow up with a very loud sound. Especially inside an archway. It is said that they are produced in China and that a single one of them can blow your fingers off if you light it up and clutch it in your hand. Especially the black Corsair type. They won't be enough to blow up plastic soldiers, but when it comes to stuff made of plaster, they should work. I looked at the portraits of classical writers. My eyes stopped on Yesenin's photo. Last year I was tasked with learning any poem, and Dad suggested I learn one about the dog Jim, written by Yesenin. I don't remember all the stanzas by now, but the last one was somehow deeply ingrained in my memory. I'm sure she'll come here in my absence. Please catch her eye. Go kiss her hand for me. For all my real or fancied errors asking forgiveness of her in humility. An old cheap slide projector. I called this model a tank because it looked like one. There was a time when I had a lot of cool fairy tales that we used to watch with Dad in complete darkness. I remember Little Raccoon and One Who Sits in the Pond, Kipling's Mowgli, and many others. I was immediately swept away by the memory of the projector's hum, of its hot casing, of its bright rays hitting the wall, turning it into a screen. It's a pity that the school's slides were mostly about minerals and PSAs. After a moment of hesitation, I sat down at Baburin's desk, the place where I was supposed to be assigned by Lilia Pavlovna at first. The chatter resumed, as if someone just unpaused a movie. Baburin's grandma made such a fuss when he didn't return home. First, she ran to the school, then called the cops. Yes, yes, yes. Katya snuck a cunning glance at me, then leaned in to her neighbor and whispered something. Girls from the second row also leaned in. She shared something with them too. Whispers, nods. I kept catching her stare on myself. Her neighbor stared too. The whole class was watching me. It was like they felt the need to watch me because they were searching for traces of blood on my fingers. I wanted to defend myself and shout, "Guys, listen, I'm innocent." The delinquents turned around and stared at me in silence. Their looks were dripping with malice. But why? What did I do to them? Their friend went missing, and they are still focused on me. Suddenly, I noticed Basha drilling a hole in my nose with his eyes. It felt like he was about to point his finger at me and shout at the top of his lungs. "Everyone look, Baburin snatched his glasses yesterday, and now he has them back, murderer." But he remained silent, as if there was nothing special at all about my glasses. I may be going mad, but I think Basha knows something. He knows something, but he won't tell me what. As if looking for protection, I clutched the ruler until my hand hurt. You don't have to be Columbo to solve this. Columbo, an American crime drama television series starring Peter Falk as Columbo, a homicide detective with the Los Angeles Police Department. Who held a grudge against Baburin? Who hit him yesterday, bullied him, and then... The metal ruler fell out of my weak fingers. It hit the floor with a jingle, and that made the other kids shudder. Katya bit her tongue and squirmed nervously. Chairs scraped against the floor. My classmates moved away from me, closer to the exit, toward the teacher's desk. I was not the only one to catch wind of that change. Romka and Biasha looked around and winced in contempt. Too bad that they weren't afraid of me like everybody else. Shut it. I betcha Baburin just got a whipping from his old hag and ran off. They'll find him soon. They'll find him all right. In a ravine, with his stomach cut open. I gulped. I imagined Sema on a snowy blanket, his face, white like a fish belly, split down the middle by the crevice of his mouth, snowflakes falling on his glassy eyes and filling up his throat. See, I could almost hear his condescending tone. It's all your fault. But why was Semyon the only one get his just desserts for bullying me? Weren't all of them supposed to disappear? Romka, Biasha, Katya, along with every laughing onlooker. Of course, Semyon did me a favor by disappearing. Thanks to him, my classmates now stared at me in awe. But that was only one side of the coin. What if I'll have to repay that favor soon? The door creaked. Polina entered the classroom. I straightened up in a hurry so she wouldn't see me looking like a scared critter. Polina went to her seat without looking at me. The ringer's trill announced the start of the class.
Так, заканчиваем бардак. Дети, встаньте.
All right, stop messing around. Class, stand up.
Петров, тебя
You
это
too,
тоже
Petrov.
касается?
Lilia Pavlovna went to her desk, followed by a policeman in a uniform. It was the man that visited us just recently, tall, and his stare so sharp you could get cut on it. Hello there, kids. Hi.
Садитесь.
You can sit down, kids.
Познакомьтесь.
This is
Это
Senior
старший
Lieutenant
лейтенант
Konstantin
Владимирович Тихонов.
Vladimirovich Tikhonov.
Он задаст вам несколько вопросов.
He's going to ask you a couple of questions and give you a small PSA. The class livened up. Talking to a policeman was way better than studying. I, on the other hand, was ready to sit through hundreds of hours of Russian literature just to escape the lieutenant's oppressive stare. His brown eyes felt around the classroom, looking for me. Hair stood on the back of my neck, and an icicle had lodged in my gut. Is it true that Baburin got killed by a serial killer? Shush, Yekaterina.
Вопросы здесь
Let the adults ask questions here. We are all scared. Maybe the killer is somewhere close. Maybe they're even sitting among us. Her sly stare was directed at me. Tikhonov stepped in between the rows of desks and started walking at the excruciatingly slow pace, brushing his fingers against the chairs he passed by. Some of the students almost broke their necks following his movements. That's how a crowd of commoners would gleefully anticipate a public execution in the Middle Ages. and he just walked, getting closer and closer to me. I gritted my teeth to stop myself from screaming. Calm down, breathe. You didn't kill or kidnap anyone. He already knew the answer to his question, but the policeman still asked in a stern voice.
Petrov Anton?
Anton Petrov?
Да.
Yes.
Встань, Петров.
Stand up, Petrov. My muscles turned to stone. I got up, unglued myself from the chair. I felt like I could hear all my joints creak in the process. I only wished that Polina wouldn't turn around and see the grimace of horror on my face. If only I could be somewhere far away, in the forest, digging myself into a snow pile, rolling up into a ball there. The officer stared at me as if he was about to lock a pair of handcuffs on my wrists. I wonder how cold these bracelets are to the touch. I imagined myself getting jailed and put into a juvenile detention center, where tens of Semyons would constantly harass me.
Не знаю.
I don't know anything. I have nothing to do with this.
А тебя никто и не
Nobody is
обвиняет.
accusing you of anything.
Пока что.
For now. Only then I noticed a file that said case number in his hand. It had a grey cover made from rough carton. It flopped onto the desk like a guillotine blade that slid down on someone's neck. With a measured motion, Tikhonov opened the file, still studying me with his gaze. I caught a glimpse of documents and photos. They showed prints on the snow. They looked like animal prints.
Ты с Семеном Бабуриным
Have you talked
общался?
to Semyon Baburin before?
Я знал его
I
всего
only
одну
knew him
неделю.
for a week.
Все знают.
Everyone knows that Petrov hated him.
Ненавидел.
I turned red. You ugly bitch. I wanted to sink my teeth into Katya's face and chew out her cheek. Instead, I replied with the calmest voice I could muster.
Мы повздорили
We had a
вчера,
fight yesterday,
но он первый начал.
but he started it,
Я его
so
ударил.
I hit him.
Сильно?
How hard did you hit him?
Да нет,
Not that
да.
hard. I mean... I waved my hand indecisively. Tikhonov looked at my fist as if he was surprised that I managed to hit the big kid from the photo. Surprisingly, Lilia Pavlovna came to my rescue. Baburin is a trouble teen, a true pain in the rear. The officer replied with a meaningful nod and fished out a notebook out of the file.
Это твое?
Is this yours? I averted my gaze. It was a math notebook with my name on it. My classmates devoured me greedily with their eyes. It felt like even the writers on the portraits squinted at me in suspicion. Yes,
В лесу наш.
we found it in the forest.
Там же
In the area where the tractor driver who was plowing snow there last saw Baburin. I started blinking in bewilderment. Romka ransacked my school bag. This notebook probably just got lost somewhere in the bushes. The lieutenant knew about the school brawl, but was he aware of the fight in the forest clearing? I had witnesses that could testify to Semyon and I walking in different directions after that. I looked toward the boys, hopeful. Romka, who sat behind Tikhonov, put a finger to his lips. And when the officer quickly turned around, he pretended to pick on his nose. I deciphered his signal. Boys like Romka would probably say something like, "Snitches get stitches," in a situation like this. I frantically fixed my glasses. Wait, Semyon took them away yesterday, but now they are...
Так что ты делал вчера в лесу, Антон?
So what were you doing in the forest yesterday, Anton?
Я в школу через лес хожу.
I go to school through the forest.
Могла выпасть
It
легко.
could have easily fallen out of my bag. Easily, just like me producing this half-truth.
Будь осторожнее.
Be careful out there. Before I could realize whether it was a genuine piece of advice or a veiled threat, the teacher said,
Класс.
"Class, the officer will now tell you about some rules you should follow." So, the killer does exist. We can't make any of this public for now.
Но есть преступник или нет,
Whether
вы
the
должны
criminal
четко
really
помнить о
exists
собственной
or not,
безопасности.
you should be mindful of your safety.
Вас бережет
The
милиция.
police, your
Вас
parents,
оберегают
and your
родители и
teachers
учителя.
all watch over
Но в
you,
первую очередь защищать
but no one
себя
guard you
должны вы
better
сами.
than you yourself.
Итак,
Alright,
кто там
any
что хотел
questions?
узнать?
A stockade of arms rose from the desks. The kids shouted over each other, swarming the policemen with questions. The grey file was left lying in front of me. I stared at it, my breathing so ragged that I might have looked like someone who just ran a 100-meter sprint. Pads of sweat rolled down my back. I looked around the classroom. My classmates were catching officers' every word. Only Romka was saying something to Basha. Lilia Pavlovna was staring into the window, fighting back yawns.
Комендантский час, причин пока нет. Слишком мало времени прошло с момента исчезновения вашего одноклассника.
As soon as I touched the folder, Tikhonov lashed at me with his eyes. My hand instinctively moved away, as if that stare actually hurt. The officer just kept staring at me without saying a word, making me squirm under the weight of his uncomfortable silence and the sneering looks of my classmates. And then he suddenly continued his speech as if nothing ever happened.
Мы все уверены, что он найдется живым и здоровым.
I guess I
Но
can't do
сразу после урока
anything else.
вы должны идти домой и отчитываться
Well,
перед
why is
родителями.
this blinking? The officer finished his lecture and started searching around with his eyes. Finally, he noticed the folder he left on my desk, put it silently under his arm, and went toward the blackboard without looking back.
И еще раз.
Let me say this again.
Если вы заметите
If you
в
see
поселке
anyone
кого-то
suspicious in the
подозрительного,
village,
неважно, возле
be it near
школы
the
или
school
на лесной цепи.
or on the forest trail, contact the police immediately.
Телефон-то знаете?
You know our number, right? 02.
Спасибо, ребята.
Thanks for listening, boys and girls.
Спасибо,
Thank you,
Лилия
Lilia Pavlovna.
И это,
And
одноклассника
we'll
вашего
find your
найдите.
classmate. Yeah, right. A thought flashed through my mind. Dig through enough ditches and maybe you'll be able to piece him together. Like Legos. My thoughts turned evil for some reason and I couldn't control them. I tried to switch to the lieutenant's speech about suspicious individuals. What if I saw the killer before? What if I was a hair's breadth away from them? Suspicious people. How suspicious was the fox girl that wandered in the darkness? A weirdo that always appears out of nowhere and then dissolves into thin air with her riddles and rhymes. Could she really harm the hulking Semyon? Should I tell the officer about her? Wait, what if I get mocked for speaking out? What if they'll start whispering behind my back? Or what's even worse, think that I'm insane? Romka gave me a stern look over the shoulder. I doubt someone like him would approve of cooperating with the police. Katya's braid dangled nervously behind the delinquents sitting in front of me. My hand was glued to the desk.
До свидания, лейтенант.
Tikhonov was saying goodbye to Lilia Pavlovna. He was about to leave. It'd be too late soon. Okay, so I feel like telling him will probably be a bad choice, judging by the previous choices. I don't know, I just have this feeling. But at the same time, it just feels more logical for me to tell him about a suspicious person with a mask. Because if we just stay silent, it means we are covering details of this case. I think I will just tell him, but I feel like probably majority of people choose to stay silent. It's just a game. I unglued my palm from the tabletop. I need to warn him, at the very least, for Ola's sake, to assure her safety in the house near the squeaky pines. I raised my hand, heavy as a dumbbell.
Простите.
Excuse me. Almost 2,000 heads turned my way. My teacher, the officer, Polina. Katya shoved an elbow into her friend's side. Sleepy Basha stretched out his neck. Romka frowned inquiringly.
Я слушаю.
I'm listening. It felt like I was being studied under a microscope.
Вчера утром по дороге в
Yesterday,
школу я видела
when I was walking to school in the morning,
незнакомого человека.
I saw an unfamiliar person. My classmates started whispering. Tikhonov frowned, a deep wrinkle adorning the space between his eyebrows.
Да откуда ему знать, чужак это или кто-то из местных?
There is no way he'd be able to tell if it was an outsider or a local.
Он же в поселке
He
Белая
just moved
неделя.
to our village. The other kids smirked. Katya flashed an evil smile.
Спокойствие.
Calm down.
Антон, а
Can you
сможешь
describe them
детальнее
in more
описать?
detail, Anton? Then it dawned on me. I can't do more than describe them. What I can do,
Я нарисовать могу.
I can draw them.
Я рисую.
I know how to
немного.
draw, kind of. After spitting out this confession, I expected everybody to laugh, but that didn't happen. Even Katya stayed silent. Polina tilted her head and studied me with an intrigued look on her face. I was pleased by this wave of attention. It made me feel bolder, so I asked,
Нарисовать?
"Do you want me to?" Tikhonov slowly nodded.
Лилия Павловна, мы
Lilia
тут проведем
Pavlovna,
следственный
we'll conduct
эксперимент.
a bit of an experiment here, all right?
Пожалуйста,
Of course, of course. I took out a pen, flattened out a sheet of paper. My classmates stared at me in anticipation. Oh no, now he will not be able to draw her because in the previous episode when he was trying to draw a dinosaur, he couldn't and he drew a fox instead. And now it's going to be vice versa probably and everyone will make fun of him. Polina smiled and it was the best reward I could get for my boldness.
Ну что, Ван Гог?
Well,
Рисуй.
go on, Van Gogh, draw. I can choose? Wow, this is cool. So I can even lie and just draw something else.
Вот, пожалуйста.
Here. I handed my drawing to the officer.
Это что?
What's
лиса?
this? A fox?
Смешно, юморит.
Very funny.
Прикажешь ее по лесу
Should we
с
send a
собаками
pack
ловить?
of hunting dogs on its trail? It felt like the windows started shaking from everybody's laughter. Even Lilia Pavlovna couldn't help it. But can't he just explain that it was a person in a mask?
Все не так.
That's not it. Hey, Petrov, maybe you also met with Cheburashka? Cheburashka, a cult character created by Eduard Uspensky, is one of the main characters in a book, Gena the Crocodile and His Friends. He was later featured in a series of cartoons, some of which were produced in Japan. Cult character? Hilarious. Simply hilarious. Haha. I was burning at the stake of shame. But he can just elaborate. Of course it's weird if he doesn't say anything.
Все ясно.
Case closed, I guess. Tikhonov crumpled my drawing in his fist.
Ну,
Well,
занимайтесь.
I'll be going. He left. The bell rang.
Придурочный.
A nut job. I didn't move, just kept staring into space. Lilia Pavlovna passed by without looking my way. Polina left after her. My classmates went silent at the same time, as if someone muted the sound on a TV. They followed me with their eyes the whole time. I was passing between the rows. Judgmental looks. I felt like I was in the scopes of many sniper rifles. I squeezed through the barricade made of desks, looking for Polina. But I stumbled into my new buddies instead. Romka swaggered up to me.
Решил сдать нас ментам.
Decided to rat us out to the cops?
Но я ничего не сказал.
I didn't say anything,
Да то подумал.
but sure as heck thought about it, eh? Romka towered over me, breathing out a faint smell of tobacco.
Ты сильно
You are very
ошибаешься,
wrong
думая,
if you
что без
think
Сёмы у тебя
that
настанут
without Soma
веселые
you'll
деньки.
have a better time here.
Можешь не
You can
притворяться
stop your
дурачком,
weird
пытаясь
act,
уделить
trying to
Полину
impress
своим
Polina
мозгам, или
with your
корчите себя
doodles
психа.
or by acting like a loony. We'll make this place hell for you. Got it?
До скорого,
See you,
очкарик.
Four Eyes. My head tilted forward from his slap. What a loser, eh? I wasn't surprised to find a note stuck to my back during the break. It said, "Kick me." My nightmare clearly wasn't about to end. It's been 7 days since the lieutenant visited our class. At first glance, everything was still the same. The forest still held out its gnarly claws toward the village, and the wind whipped up white flags weaved from powdery snow every night. When my parents argued in the other room, I would turn up the TV's volume to silence their muffled voices and sit close to Oля. Vova's and Simeon's photos were still 2 black spots on the notice board. But something did change. I could see how different the looks of my classmates were. They met me with a new portion of pokes and insults. Contempt, mockery, and loneliness became my faithful companions. But most importantly, a shadow slid across my desk, leaving behind a mysterious note. I glanced into the space between rows, but the messenger was already nowhere to be found. Who sent me this note? What could this carefully ripped out and neatly folded piece of paper be hiding from me? More threats and humiliation, or... I took the piece of paper and carefully inhaled the wafting aroma. BlackBerry. Inside was a message in beautiful handwriting. I'm waiting at a dead end near the dressing room. Come alone. Drunk on that sudden call, I immediately started walking, looking over my shoulder from time to time, making sure nobody is following me. Even though I suspected it could be another trap set up by Romka and Biasha at first, this buzzing thought soon left my mind. The two of them didn't have enough combined brain power to fake Polina's note so carefully. I didn't even notice how I almost broke into a run and jumped around the corner. As soon as I did that, I rammed into somebody inside the dark nook. Oh! Like a magic bird, a green notebook glided to my feet. Polina puffed her cheeks in exaggerated anger. Petrov, have you lost your sight completely? I fixed my glasses. My nearsightedness wasn't that embarrassing anymore. I bent down and picked up the notebook. Sorry, I was in a rush. Were you waiting for me? Did something happen? Polina studied me with her eyes and clicked her tongue. Do you know what you look like, Antosha? Like blues improvisation. I blinked in bewilderment. What do you mean? I always associate people I know with something. I do that too, but why music? It can't be anything other than music. Some people are like guitar solos, some are drums. People like our Lilia Pavlovna are warm marches. And you are so thoughtful, so mysterious, sometimes even a bit sad. You are definitely blues. And what about the improvisation part? It is when the listener has no idea where the melody will go, what tempo it will adopt. Of course, some of the things Polina said went completely over my head. But I couldn't stop looking at her smile, light like a breeze in May, and her eyes deep and blue. One need to have experience and taste to recognize the music in you. You are not some pop music. I don't think I even know what blues is. Polina gasped and frowned, which made her look even more beautiful. Don't say something like that to my face. I'll make sure to give you a cassette. Grandpa used to bring me so much music from the city. Jazz, swing, and classical too. He was the one to notice my musical mindset. When I was still very little, I tried recording the sounds of nature on paper, the songs of the rain and the forest. I wish I had ears like yours. And I'd love to have your eyes. I tensed up, worried that she was making fun of me, but Polina shook her head. No, I'm serious. You have the eyes of an artist. You are so good at picturing things. I can't do that. Katya walked past us with her trademark frosty glare. We dove into the shadows, trying to escape it. You understand why we are hiding here, right? Because of people like her. And what kind of melody is Katya? Polina flashed me a sly smile. The squeaking sound of unoiled door hinges. You know, this nasty descant. I giggled, covering my mouth. Katya didn't hear our whispers, but she suddenly glanced over her shoulder, clearly annoyed. A moment later, she sighed and went her way. I remembered about the notebook I was still clutching in my hand. I turned it in my hands. Instead of a subject name, the front side had the name of the owner and 2 words, friends only.
Любопытной Варваре кое-что
Curiosity killed the cat, you know?
Прости, это анкета?
I'm sorry, is this a questionnaire?
заполнял когда-нибудь?
Have you ever filled one? I lied that I had. In reality, girl classmates from my previous school had never asked me to fill their questionnaires. It was quite upsetting. I mean, it was a girl hobby. You just answer a set of standard questions about your favorite actors and colors, but entrusting someone with such a notebook was the sign of a friendship. And maybe of something even more, something I only had a vague idea about.
Хочешь?
You can fill in mine if you want. My heartbeat quickened.
Хочу.
I do, thank you. Polina giggled.
А хотя,
Actually, there are so many secrets there.
наверное, лучше тебе не знать, о чем мы...
You'd be better off not knowing what we girls think. She reached for the notebook, playing with me. I tossed my finding into my free hand. Polina tried to intercept my move. Her hair briefly touched my face, tickling my nose with its silky locks. I sensed an aroma that immediately filled the whole world. Fragrant, alluring, lively. If only I could picture it, steal it for myself. I felt dizzy, but I gathered myself and spoke in a voice reminiscent of Lieutenant Tikhonov.
Ваша анкета является
Your
важнейшим
questionnaire is an
Я вынужден
important
временно
piece of
изъять его
evidence,
для изучения.
so I'm afraid I have to confiscate it for further examination. Polina covered her mouth that rounded in fake horror.
И что мне грозит за
And what are the implications of concealing evidence?
Следствие покажет.
We'll decide that in the course of our investigation.
Сдаюсь,
I surrender,
товарищ
Mr. Policeman.
Только обещайте
Just
ничего
promise
не
you won't
читать.
read anything.
Здесь
It's full of
содержатся
sensitive
секретные
information.
сведения.
Боюсь, что мне
I'm
всё-таки
afraid I'll
придётся
have to
выяснить,
investigate
не
whether
влюблён ли
someone is in
Петров
love
в
with
Петрова.
Mr. Petrov. Polina burst out laughing and pressed herself against my chest, showering me with the aroma of her hair and her milky skin that looked almost transparent, with tiny threads of veins running under it. Her whisper was hot, like a piece of butter sizzling on a pan.
Тогда поклянитесь,
Then swear that you will keep this information private.
Честная милиция.
I swear on my police badge.
А теперь, Антоша, самое
And now we
время
need to hurry,
поторопиться.
Antosha. I took out the notebook during class. Skimmed through it, reading into other people's preferences. I was quite surprised to discover Romka's jerky handwriting inside. His letters bulged out of the cells, as if embarrassed by their shapelessness. Fearsome Romka found time for something so silly. I chuckled into my fist after I found out that Romka's favorite cartoon is not even Darkwing Duck, but DuckTales. Somewhere in the distance, a teacher was reciting pieces of Andreev's Snapper. I paid them no mind. Polina's page was decorated with flower drawings and clippings from the Cool Girl magazine. Her favorite musician is Schubert. Her best friend is her grandpa. Her hobby is not violin like I expected, but a much more mysterious listening. Can such a mundane process really be someone's hobby? I looked at Paulina over the heads of other students. She was focused on taking notes. I flipped the pages until I found a blank one and armed myself with a pen. Anton Petrov, Class 6B. I took a long time to decide on my favorite musician until a trendy pop band, Carmen, came to mind with the cool dancers in their music videos. Carmen, a Soviet and Russian technopop band most popular from the late 80s to early 90s, found by Bogdan Titomir and Sergei Lemok. It is mostly remembered for unique dancing performances and for writing a music theme for the Captain Pronin cartoon. Favorite holiday? This one's easy. New Year's. My hobby is drawing. My dream? Going to Disneyland, I guess. My hero? My hand moved on its own, writing da. I stopped on those two letters. What if those who read this after me will find my answer laughable and stupid? After thinking for a bit, I decided that not everything should be disclosed on paper. That's how da turned into Spider-Man. The spelling was wrong. But who cares? Your biggest fear, huh? I immediately wrote, losing a person who's dear to me. Your phone number. No secret here. 30395. Your favorite cartoon. Transformers. Your best friend. I hesitated, gnawing on the pen's cap. Your best friend. I read the question out loud. It was easy, but at the same time, very important. The answer to that was my sister's name, so I carefully wrote it into the squares. Oля. Oля, I repeated my sister's name while sneaking out of the school. There was a cute, freshly drawn dragon in my notebook that I made to please my beloved sister. In this land of darkness and deceit, her support was the only thing that inspired me to keep drawing and stopped me from losing hope in humanity. Refreshing, frosty air made my cheeks turn beet red. It was bright outside, and the sun looked like a whole egg yolk. The road looked as if it was silvered. The snow sparkled under the sunlight. I smiled, squinting from the blinding whiteness. Who cares if I don't have any true friends anymore? I have something more important, someone who needs my help, who will never betray or hurt me. Family is the most important thing ever. That's what Dad always told me. Hey, what's up with the stupid grin? My numb lips immediately shrank. Biasha was shuffling his feet in the middle of the yard, his boots restless on the ice. It's not a grin. I tried to go around him, to no avail. Lady Fortune waved me goodbye, disappearing in the early twilight. In a hurry, eh? A little bit. Dad is waiting for me. I'll shoot him a pager message that you are not coming, eh? Pager, a wireless telecommunications device that receives and displays alphanumeric or voice messages. To send a message to another person's pager, you had to call a special line, provide the recipient's number or name, and read your message aloud. My eye flinched unwittingly, my skin dampened.
Идем.
Let's go, eh? We have a small business to discuss. I felt chills run all over my body. I didn't like the sounds of that small business. Those words, accompanied by spitting, normally hid very dark deeds underneath them. Strangers that used to call our old apartment used to say, "Get your old man, we have a small business to discuss." Biasha turned around. He looked like an astronaut in his tight hood. If I were to imagine him as a sound, he'd be a deafening whistle, a signal given by someone who stands watch. To my demise, there was nobody at the backyard, apart from the green-faced Romka. He stood there, his feet wide apart, with his right hand hidden behind his back. Why did he even follow him? He could just try and go home. Romka's dry lips were tightly pursed. He kept shooting glances at me as he looked around.
Привел на.
There he is, eh?
Вижу.
I can see that.
Ну, здорово,
Well, hello there, Antoshka.
Антоша.
Что тебе нужно?
What do you want? He slowly took out a thin, carnivorously shiny blade from behind his back. A knife, the steel butterfly of death that flies toward the victim's heartbeat. I stepped back instinctively and rammed my back into Biasha. Romka's minion pushed me back.
А мы с Бешей-
We wanted to know,
Ты не
do you
держишь
have
на
any
лице?
hard feelings for me or Biasha? Romka started picking on his yellow nail, looking at me with an evil smirk on his face.
Ну, там,
Well, there, in the forest,
мы
we
были
kinda
много
roughed you
с
up.
тобой.
Сам понимаешь.
It's just our poor upbringing, you know?
Да, да,
Yeah,
вас городских
Not as
далеко.
cultured as you, city folk.
Вот порой нас
So
и
we get
заносит.
feisty sometimes. I nodded, my eyes glued to the knife. The blade glowed under the setting sun, and Romka's eyes had the same evil glow. He stepped toward me. His knife traveled inches away from my coat. One movement and steel would cut into the cloth, and if he pushes deeper,
Нам одна птичка
a little bird told
Ты
us
опять возле
that you
Полины?
were snooping about Polina again. I was so scared that it took me a while to remember who Polina was. My brain was malfunctioning, my knees were shaking. Suddenly, our class rep slowly walked up to Romka from behind.
Смотри, мальчики.
I see you boys are getting along quite well.
За мной должок.
I owe you one, Katya.
Ой,
Oh,
не
no need to thank me, Romachka. I'm always fighting for true love.
Да-да-да.
Yes, yes, yes. I'll kill you, I swear.
Так, я не слышу.
I
Ты к
can't
Полине
hear you.
подходил или нет?
Were you near Polina or not?
Мы
Well, we didn't hang out or anything.
Болтать будешь,
The only thing
кишками,
hanging
когда я
out
тебе
here
брюхо вскрою.
will be your guts when I cut open your stomach. The blade slid across my sleeve with its dull side and reached my collar. The wind made my face cold, but a bed of sweat still trickled from my temple. A switch flipped in my head. It all made sense now. I remembered Romka constantly sneaking glances at Polina. I remembered his scrawly handwriting in the questionnaire. Why didn't I study it more in depth? I see you near Polina even once, and you won't get away with a simple bump.
Усёк?
Got it?
Да.
Yes.
Пшёл вон!
Now scram. I was probably so hypnotized by the knife that Romka had to repeat his threat.
Вон!
Scram! I thought about the cold, sharp blade when retreating from the yard. I was asking myself whether I had enough courage to break the promise I made to these bastards. The aftertaste of horrible water I drank down my meds with lingered in my mouth. My thoughts were focused on Polina. But Romka's threat was also on my mind. I wandered around the house, feeling intoxicated, and nodded to everything my sister said without trying to discern her words. Oля was talking non-stop, at times lifting up her arms and laughing, only to then suddenly go quiet and give me Mom's signature gnarly look. I was yanked out of the prison of my own mind, where seething thoughts pecked at my brain like harpies, stopping me from coming back to reality. I stared back. Oля looked like a mini version of our mom right now. Well, to be precise, she looked like the person Mom turned into when we moved here, with her intimidating posture and her eyebrows directed toward the ceiling. You weren't listening to me, were you? She tried spitting out those words at me, copying facial expressions of the person she spent almost all of her free time with. For a moment, I felt like the light Ola exuded all these years waned and wavered in the wind of prolonged changes. Very soon, my beautiful princess will turn into the dragon that was once guarding her prison tower. The thought was much scarier to me than any other horror sneaking up to me from the future. Sorry, Ola. I didn't want to make you mad. I just got lost in thought. I looked around the room, my gaze jumping from the object to another, like a hungry beast, trying to find anything that could distract Ola. Let's play the console. Ola pouted, but there was a spark of interest in her small emerald eyes. The Snow Queen's ice shard inside them started thawing. And what about the second controller? It's not working. And Dad has no time to fix it. We can play with the light gun. What do you want to play? Cowboys, ducks? You are better than me at both. Oh, come on. You must have been practicing the whole time I was away from home. I'm thinking, why is she not going to school? Isn't she 8? Ola burst out laughing. Her heart was warm once again. How did you know? But I'm a good shooter now. You've already lost. You've picked the wrong fight here. Come on, turn it on. No, do I have to play the minigame? Little Ola jumped toward the TV set and, after flicking the power switch, started blindly feeling around the back side of the futon, trying to plug the console's cable into the antenna input. Bits of TV shows started flashing on the CRT screen when I armed myself with the remote to look for the channel with the sought-after dandy signal. Did anything interesting happen at home? It was a mundane question for me. I didn't put any actual meaning behind it. But Ola's expression suddenly changed. She lost all of the childish nonchalantness and worked so hard to acquire before. What happened, Ola? My sister managed to put the cable in its place and started brushing off her dust-covered hand. She was clearly looking for the courage to continue the conversation. Mom, she... Ola went silent, and for a moment I thought I saw tears welling up in her eyes. She had this scary thing happen to her again. My sister looked at me with wet eyes. She had a fit, huh? This had happened before, but it was a rare occasion. Now that we'd moved to this godforsaken place, Mom's fits rose in frequency. Dad brought home a big fish. It was wrapped in a newspaper and had a foul smell. Mom got angry again and then she took a knife. Oля squirmed, looking fearfully out of the window. They started screaming at each other. I froze, imagining my little sister so small and unnoticeable, standing in the kitchen doorway. She wasn't even trying to hide. Our parents just paid her no mind at all. And then Mom struck it. Like this. Oля slightly moved her fist downward, imitating a strike. She hit the fish. It was still alive, Tosha. It must have been in pain. And Mom. It was easy to imagine what happened next. The writhing fish with a blade between its fins squirted some foul-smelling musk into Mom's face. Whenever death got this close to my mom, be it when a person was hit by a bus in front of us and their blood was smeared all over the windshield, or when Grandma chopped off a kitchen's head, Mom would always get into a weird, dreadful fit. Her eyes would roll over. She would fall on her face like a freshly cut tree and started writhing just like that agonizing fish, turning over chairs and blurting out bits of scary sentences. And what about Dad? Did he help her? Oля shuddered, as if just remembering it pained her. Yes, but at first he started laughing, Tosha. He let out an evil laugh when he saw that Mom was in trouble. But then he cried. Ola's story made me raise an eyebrow. It seemed like the forest's oozing madness had not only completely consumed our mom, but also infected our strong and courageous dad. I quickly stepped toward Ola and locked her in a tight embrace. Aww. She dug her face into my chest and I could feel my shirt becoming wet. Why are they bullying each other, Tosha? Are they crazy? I shuddered, unable to justify the actions of our parents. I had run out of words, and all I could do was hug Ola even tighter. Ola screamed and hid behind me. Turn it off, quick! No matter how many times she saw this intro, she would always react the same, just like when she saw that owl. I mean, I also got goosebumps every time this ghastly face appeared on the screen, so I immediately complied with my sister's request. VID, a TV company logo depicting a ceramic head of the Chinese philosopher Guo Xiang with a three-legged toad on top of his head. It instilled horror in the whole generation of 90s kids in Russia. Finally, the game selection screen showed up for the cartridge that was bundled with the console. Too bad most of the names here were just different levels of the same game. I picked up the grey rectangular controller and started looking around the pixel letters to find the familiar English word for duck. Background music from the menu soothed Ola's mind, and she asked in a calm voice, "How are things at school?" "Nothing good. The school is new, but my treatment is the same.
Словно и не переезжал.
as if we never moved. I'm so tired of this. Before despair could lead me down its depressing road towards the clutches of oppressive thoughts, something evil writhed deep inside my skull, awakening wild and pleasant memories.
Хотя, знаешь,
Actually, something
кое-что
good did
хорошее
happen.
всё же случилось.
Ola watched with hope, filled eyes, as a wicked smile spread on my face, faintly resembling the wound from a box cutter knife.
Еще один
Another boy
мальчик.
went missing.
Тоша,
Tosha, do you think that's good? Why do you say that? My sister's voice trembled when she looked into my eyes through the thick lenses.
Знаешь,
You know,
тот
that
пропавший
other missing boy,
виноват, что
Vova.
с ним это
Maybe
случилось.
what happened to him was all his fault?
Может, он
Maybe he did something so bad
настолько плохой,
that he no longer deserved to live. Don't be so cruel, please! Ola pressed her knees into her chin and hugged them with her hands, trying to take up less space, as if she wanted to shrink or even disappear altogether. It was the only reasonable thing for us to do, go missing among all the other broken toys, and never encounter evil parents or mad classmates. We are the only ones left for each other, the only ones who can protect, listen, and sympathize. Sympathize. Which means she is bound to listen to what I think about all of them, these beasts pretending to be children that are so eager to bully the weak. It was my turn to speak.
думаю, они
I
не
think they
посмеют.
won't be the last. My breathing quickens. My fingers start banging on the wooden floor.
Такие люди, как
People
они,
like them
недостойны
are
жить,
not
ходить
worthy of
в одну
living,
школу,
going to the same school with us,
смотреть на твой
or
свет.
looking at your light. My thoughts got tangled. They slipped away along with my calmness. Tosha, stop it! You're scaring me.
Не бойся.
Don't be
Я
scared,
смогу
I
тебя
can
защитить.
protect you. Then I finally noticed that Ola was looking at me like I was a stranger. Who are you? The rage that welled up inside me subsided. It hid under the guise of my cowardliness, leaving me alone with the growing feeling of guilt for scaring my sister.
Оленька, прости,
Ola, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Видимо, я схожу
I
с
guess
ума в
I'm
этой
just
школе.
going crazy in that school. She rushed to embrace me, barely holding back her tears.
Все хорошо.
It's okay, Tosha, just please, never say anything like this again.
Клянусь маминым
I
сердцем.
swear on Mom's heart. Ola flashed me a bitter smile.
А сам сказал,
And you told me I shouldn't say that.
хорошо.
Ты права.
You're right, let's start playing already.
Только чур я первая.
I go first. No. Should I should let her win, I think. Let's get dangerous. Or do I have to win? Can I just turn it off? I don't really want.
Поиграли и будет.
Okay, we are done playing. My mom only managed to get through to me on her third attempt. Anton, there's a call for you. It's a girl. I I sobered up in an instant and rushed to the hallway.
Не споткнись, смотри.
Watch your step. I grabbed the phone, pressed it into my chest, looking at my mom. She shrugged and went into the room, gathering the toys thrown around by Oля as she went.
Алло?
Hello. Your mom has such a young voice.
Ну
Well,
да.
yeah, I
Она
mean,
сама молодая.
she is young. Are you busy right now?
Нет, что ты.
No, of course not. If only she knew how costly this conversation could be for me, what risks I took on just answering this call. There were a pen and a shabby notepad lying on the nightstand. I picked them up and started moving the tip of the pen across paper, producing chaotic doodles that always ended up turning into hearts. I've been thinking, I need to tell you something. I froze. It can't be. Does she like me? You've been looking so lost lately. And when I saw you at school today, you were pale like a ghost. I couldn't find words. My heart was aflutter in anticipation. I wanted to say that I'm on your side. A smile was spreading on my face in anticipation for Polina's next words. And I feel so sorry for you. Good guys like you deserve better. I want to believe that you'll find the strength to fight back at some point, and the others will stop picking on you. The pen fell out of my weak fingers. Is that all she's going to say? Maybe you'll even find a girlfriend. She sounded as if she was unsure of her own words. Well, I just wanted to let you know that you're a nice guy. It was a total failure. Compassion instead of an invitation to hang out. You there? Before I could reply, Oля descended the stairs. She was holding some book in a pink cover. Encyclopedia of a Young Lady. Will you take long? I covered the handset with my hand.
Я разговариваю.
I'm in the middle of a conversation.
Что случилось?
What happened? Read me a bedtime story, please. Mom fell asleep.
Иди к себе.
Go to your room. I'll be there in a minute. Just be quick, okay?
Ладно.
Fine. My last reply sounded excessively annoyed. I sighed, watching my sister running up the stairs.
Алло, Полина?
Hello, Polina. Sorry, I need to run. Can you imagine? There is someone in love with me, and he snoops about under my windows, demanding to go on a date with him. I'll go chase him away before Grandpa wakes up. Or maybe I should give him a chance? I bit my lower lip in jealousy. I'll tell you tomorrow if you want. We are friends after all. Friends. At least she didn't say we were besties.
Да,
Yeah,
Конечно.
sure.
добро.
Good. The buzzer hammered at my brain. Dirty slut. An angry voice spoke through the teeth in my brain. Like a restless zombie devoid of consciousness, I dragged my feet up the staircase. I wish I could tell Dad, ask for his manly advice. But he doesn't show up home until late at night because of his new job. My parents don't have time for me, to put it lightly.
Ну, где твоя книжка?
Well, where's your book? I stuttered. The kids' room was empty.
Оль,
Oля? She probably snuck into my room. I started walking down the corridor. The room was infested with shadows. The blinds were wavering like there was someone hiding behind them. I smiled, sneaked toward the window, and threw open the curtain.
Попалась!
Gotcha! There was nobody behind the cloth. The window was a TV screen showing winter scenery. The lamppost, the field, and a couple of walking figures in the middle of it. Alisa and Oля. I gasped and pressed my fist to my mouth, sinking my teeth into it. Alisa was leading Oля into the thicket. I needed less than a minute to hurriedly dress and rush out of the house. My heart was beating like a firing machine gun. The wind carried the cold, resinous smell of coniferous trees from the forest. Freezing air crackled somewhere in the field. Two shadows loomed in front of the gate. I could only recognize them as my sister and the fox girl because of their height. I ran toward the fence, listening to the howling wind and the squeaking snow. One of the figures moved and slowly glided toward the thicket like an ice skater. I slowed down and touched my glasses, trying in vain to adjust my vision to the surrounding darkness. Worry landed on my shoulders like a weightless snowflake. A snake woke up in my belly and started writhing. I felt nauseous. I thought about my home, the flimsy fortress I'd left behind. I finally caught up to my sister, dressed only in a coat.
Оля!
Oля,
Ты видел лисичку?
have you seen the foxy?
Оля, зачем ты вышла на
Oля,
улицу?
why did you go outside?
Если мама
If
узнает...
mom finds out... My sister froze in place, facing the taiga. She was in a hand's reach, and I put my numb wrist on her shoulder for some reason, probably to make sure it wasn't a dream. A pointy beak was directed at me, strewn with feathers that formed an owl face. Something wearing a bird mask was staring at me. Hoot hoot, she won't. The voice sounded exactly like Ola's, but there was somebody else hiding behind the feathers and the carton. I sprinted away as if I got whipped. The masked creature only pretended to be Ola, just to lure me out. I was running like crazy, drowning in snow. The house in front of me was rapidly growing. The yellow light in its windows granted me hope. My mom and sister are there, my salvation. I couldn't hear anything from behind me, as if nobody was chasing me. Maybe it's because the owls can fly? I was already climbing the porch when I noticed another figure. From the soot-black shadow of my house, a scruffy wolf cub crawled out and stood in my way. Its movements were jerky, chaotic, as if it was performing some terrifying dance, or convulsing during a stroke. And even though I could clearly see that the wolf face was a mask, something in this werewolf's convulsions made me freeze in place. The boy in a wolf's costume rubbed his side against the porch post and fell to his knees. He bent his back so hard that I expected his spine to crack. The beast's eyes shone, but he didn't attack. He kept crawling around and running on all fours. I shifted my feet, my mouth agape, trying to keep him in my line of sight. Something was trickling from the slit in his mask. Vicious drops fell to the wooden planks. Saliva. Some unknown force pushed me in the back, whispering me to save myself. The fence was flashing by at the edge of my vision. I was running, in another direction this time, toward the toothy edge of the forest that smelled of pine. My heartbeat measured time. The wolf boy growled behind my back as if he forgot his human nature. Rrr, rrr. my right leg got stuck in the snow-laden cavity. I yanked it out, cursing under my breath, and fell to the ground. Blistering snow prevented me from standing up, from propping myself against anything. But my unbound thirst for life helped me get out of that trap. Darkness was creeping closer, like the toxic fumes of burial pyres. I ran again, gasping for air that stung my throat. My hair swayed in the wind. I lost my head when I fell down, and my ears were now hot from the freezing cold, while most of my body was still sweaty. The field finally ended. After realizing that running into the forest wasn't the smartest decision I could make, I dove into the line of trees. I ran without stopping, my face covered with one of my palms. I didn't want to lose an eye to some random branch. Branches whipped my clothes, pricked my skin like butchers that were herding a pig into the grinder. A knot of roots, sprouting from the ground, grabbed at my foot. I rammed into the scratchy trunk, slid down to its base, and looked around in a panic. Hugh, you are so fast. My first desire was to dash toward her and hug her. I resisted it and squeezed myself even tighter into the pine. You, what are you doing here? This and that. She was holding the hat I lost. Working part-time in Lost and Found. Put it on, or your ears will freeze and maybe even fall off soon. She giggled. I squinted in suspicion and shifted my gaze back and forth between her and the hat, scared that Alisa might be holding a severed head or something even more sinister. But in the end, my head turned out to be just my head. I took it and pulled it over my forehead. Feeling warmer? I didn't reply. There were some children in the yard. And did they bite you or something? No. Then why did you run away? The answer was obvious, but after rolling the thought on my tongue, I mumbled. I don't know. Why did I promise to never call you at Dunes again? Oh well, I keep my promises. She walked up to me and grabbed me by the elbow. I sensed the familiar aroma of mint, oranges, and burnt sparkles. I wanted to lean in to Alice, to savor the minute details of her smell. How many times do I need to tell you? You are safe as long as you are with me. I'm your friend. And they are too. I quickly turned around toward the place the fox girl was pointing to. Kids in masks appeared at the clearing. At least they looked like kids, since they were all pretty short. A wolf boy, an owl girl, and a bear boy. They all huffed and gasped for air, clearly tired from running around. This bear looks like Simeon. I thought you fell through the snow. Started digging around but couldn't find you. And I didn't care enough. You see, if you are dumb, you run around and dig. And if you are smart, you wait until the others get tired of running around and digging. Then you start talking. You're a rat. Degenerate. Huh? Don't mind him, he's a weirdo. I stood there stupefied. my mouth agape and my hands dangling helplessly. I had no idea how to react to the words of these late-night guests, but I managed to squeeze out something resembling a smile.
Вы просто меня
You just
напугали.
scared me, that's all. They started looking at each other, and somebody even snorted, as if I said something funny. Yes, yes, the fox is right.
Это он.
He's the one.
Нет, это наш.
No, this is our. Have we finally found him?
Наш
Our buddy.
зайчик.
Yes, he looks the part. The wolf boy started wagging a part of his costume like it was his tail in excitement. First. Of course you were first.
Это волчик раньше всех
Wolfie
почуял
here
зайчика в тебе.
was the first to sense the bunny in you. He told us about you.
Здравствуй.
Hello.
С нашей
And you've already met our Hootie before. She isn't that scary, is she?
Да, наверное.
I guess.
А это твой
And this smiling big guy is Teddy.
ты лучше с ним.
Be mindful with him or he'll chew off your head.
Зачем это?
What?
Да.
I see you've also dropped your sense of humor somewhere on the way here. I was still unsure if these peculiar little animals had the best intentions in mind, so I hid my hands behind my back, trying to look away from the gaping holes of their carnival masks. Alisa put her hands to her sides in a theatrical manner and somehow managed to wink with her fox face.
Когда в следующий раз придем,
The next time we
будем
come,
звонить в колокольчик,
we'll ring bells for you.
не так бояться.
That way you'll be less scared of our visit. Do we even have any bells?
Чур, я
I won't be
звонить не
ringing.
буду. У меня
My paw
лапка
hurts.
болит.
My smile was no longer fake.
О, зубы
Ah,
показал.
you showed us your teeth. That's a good sign. I didn't expect you to find us fun.
Я
I thought it
думала,
was
это
an emotion
спасибо
reserved
только
strictly to
Диснейленд.
Disneyland.
Откуда ты знаешь?
How do you know that?
Да так, прочитала
I
кое-где.
read about it somewhere.
Про меня?
You read about me?
Про клюв от воды.
Aren't you funny? No, about Disneyland, darling. You can read, human?
Зря я, что ли, в школу
Do you think I've been going to school every day for nothing? And then she sang in a coquettish voice.
Как детей не замечать, как мечты их развенчать. Учат в школе, учат в школе, учат в школе. Крепко накрепко вломить.
Where to hit kids every week, where to prey on all the meek. At your local school, of course, and in your classroom. I let out a cautious laugh. My new acquaintances didn't seem scary anymore. On the contrary, they looked friendly and welcoming. There was something about them that attracted me. Just like this clearing, this moon, and the snowflakes that fell backwards from the ground to the sky, as if someone was rewinding a tape. The masked kids got close and I felt their touch. They gave me friendly taps, felt my clothes as if checking whether I was real. There was no animalistic malice in their touch, only pure childish curiosity. For some reason, I thought to myself, I can trust them. Snowflakes just kept on floating upwards. Nobody will hurt you anymore. Friend.
Пусть только
Yeah, if somebody even tries to. The fox gave me a slight tug and burst out laughing.
Ну что, Тоша,
Well then, Tosha, will you run away screaming or come with us?
Куда?
Where to? Ha ha ha, to the amusement park. At that moment, Taiga's deceptive silence was broken by the sound of a distant flute. Mesmerizing and alluring, it brought about the ring of crystal glass and the whispers of a fresh winter spring. If I had any doubts before, the flute's song shattered the last of them. I started following my new friends before I could even make my decision. My legs carried me of their own will, and the tunnels made of pines stepped apart. Bushes bowed in front of our procession. Everything looked dreamlike. Because even the clearing we ended up on, I only saw in my dream. The flute soared up in the treetops like some fantastical bird. The snowflakes floated up in a spiral. The moon painted tree branches with silver. Alisa gasped in amazement. I was also in awe. I tilted my head backwards as far as I could. Hoot, what a sight!
Очень красиво.
It's so beautiful. Wolfie howled in agreement.
Это мелочь.
This is nothing.
Я покажу.
I can show you much more,
Если
if you want. I did want. I wanted to see what the fox girl saw with her eyes, hidden in the semi-dark of her cape. Now I didn't feel weird about these masked kids. I felt weird for being the only one without a mask. I felt like I was naked in the January winds.
Скажите,
Why do you wear these masks? I was trembling, but I wasn't scared. My trembling wasn't caused by the cold. It originated from the peculiar anxiousness, the anticipation of something amazing.
А тебе зачем?
And why do you ask? I touched my cold cheek.
но я без маски.
I'm not wearing one. Haha, I love human tails. Human nails? Human fails.
Я же
I've already told you.
все же
All the villagers wear masks.
маски.
It's just you won't find anything human underneath them.
И даже я?
Even me? Haha, you're so clumsy, Anton. We've already found your glasses once already. And your hat.
И твою настоящую.
And your real face. I looked at the mask the fox was holding out to me. The bunny mask that looked like a silver ingot under the moonlight. I was curious to see the world through its slits. Suddenly, fighting its way through the flute's melody, a thought came to me. The glasses they found were in Simeon's possession. My new acquaintances must have known what happened to him. Or even worse.
А куда подевался Семен?
And where did Simeon disappear to? What happened to him?
И с остальными детьми?
And the other children? The bear and the owl looked at each other. The wolf boy curled into a ball, and the fox lowered the pointy nose of her mask. The one who was kept in a cage.
Тот, кто режет
The one who
мелко-мелко.
cuts into little pieces, raw. The one who wears a skin face took them.
Умел бы я креститься, перекрестился бы.
If I knew how to cross myself, I'd do it.
Хотите сказать?
So you are saying it was a human? Were he even listening to us?
Разве можно
How can you call someone like him human?
человеком?
Одно слово.
There's just one word for him, an adult. It's so easy to get lost in the adult world.
Убить
Killers, cruel animal trainers, and cold parents.
равнодушные родители.
Ah,
Лучше об этом вовсе
if you don't want to get sad, better not to think about them.
не знаю.
I don't know about you, but I definitely don't want to be sad.
Я сегодня
Somehow,
какой-то не
I'm
ровный.
also not sad today.
Антон,
What about you, Anton?
Huh?
Huh? I was lost in thought, staring at the pines, trying to pinpoint the location of the flute. I was sure that the person who played it was standing right behind the piney stockade. Someone tall, going over the holes in the flute with their long fingers.
так что?
What now?
Сядем
Are we gonna
тосковать
sit
и
and be sad
займемся
or have some fun?
отдыхом?
Алиса хотела что-то
Alisa
показать.
wanted to show me something.
Давай начнем
Let's start with the
с
sweet
самой
stuff.
сладкой части программы.
The fox girl took out a handful of candy from her pocket and handed them to each of the kids. Covers shuffled. The smell of pineapple, cocoa, and melon wafted through the air. The last treat, a chocolate-covered waffle candy, Alisa put right into my mouth. My tongue was engulfed in spiciness. I felt like my body was covered in fur and small sparks were running along it. I chewed on the waffle and the chocolate, gulped them down, enjoying the vivid taste.
Спасибо.
Thanks. My gratitude was barely audible because my lips were already touching the insides of the mask. I didn't even notice how I put it against my face. The papier-mâché was warm. The mask stuck to my skin, giving it a nice prickle. The kind when you dive into a hot bath after being outside in winter, when you lie there and purr from the soapy water.
Говорила же!
See, I told you. This is yours.
Моё.
Mine. What are we waiting for? The fun won't have itself. You're right. The melody kept swirling in the field like a hurricane. I couldn't wait to release the energy, the heat that this enchanting music was filling me with. The owl jumped and disappeared into the sky. I heard her laughter from somewhere above, and then she landed back, huffing and sighing.
И ты так можешь.
You can do it too. Give it a try. I followed suit. My feet tore off from the ground. I flew toward the stars like a rocket and screamed from happiness after seeing my friends down below. The wind helped me fly. It felt like I was jumping on a huge trampoline. The stars looked like vivid sparkles that I could reach and lick up. The moon also got closer, and then I plunged. I got scared that I'd break my legs for a moment, but my soles landed softly on the ground, and I regained my balance.
С нами ты
You are
не
safe with
домой
us.
пойти.
As soon as he put on a mask, everything became colored, and before it was just black and white.
И все твои
And
мечты
all your
сбудутся.
dreams will come true.
Я так счастлива
I'm so
наконец
happy that I
встретить
finally
тебя.
found you,
Зайчик.
Bunny. In a fit of merry laughter, I realized the most important thing. These four are not a threat. My real enemies, and I felt that with every single hair on my mask, were those who knew nothing about magic. Humans from the village. I also realized how alive my surroundings have become. I heard the dry grass under the snow moon. I saw faces of the trees and the stars. The trees were smirking and the stars were grimacing in fear. That's right, be scared. I'll jump up to you and... I snapped my teeth, then let out a jubilant laugh, jumping up along with the fox. We flew higher than the tallest pines and stayed in the air. I swirled, Alisa followed my rhythm. I knew that she was smiling, so I smiled too. And the flute just kept on playing, carrying us higher and higher.
Эй, тебя что, заколдовали?
Hey, did someone put a spell on you? I knew that he's either sleeping or... Yeah, sleeping. That happened already. That someone is standing next to me, I thought, trying to unglue my chin from the desk. My muscles felt slightly sore, but that feeling was pleasant. The whole class was wandering about for some reason, whispering and passing notes to each other. Their faces looked like discolored masks to me, bleak and boring. I yawned, remembering the time I was soaring high above the forest with Alisa by my side, laughing and squeezing my hand. Perhaps, no, probably it was all just a dream. Because I didn't walk back from the forest, just woke up in my bed on a normal morning with tea and medicine. Still, I was hardly worried about trying to find a rational explanation for my night dance. That feeling of flight was much more important. The knowledge of how it feels to be hanging in the air above the treetops of majestic pines and baring my teeth at the moon.
Прости, задумался.
Sorry, I got lost in thought.
Слышал уже про Катю?
Have you heard about Katya? Did she also disappear?
А?
Huh? I glanced at the empty seat in front of me.
Катя пропала.
Katya went missing. My sleepiness was gone in an instant. I frowned in suspicion.
Как пропала?
What do you mean? It can't be. Attention, child missing. Katya Smirnova, 12 years old, grade 6B. Was last seen during the day on January 23 at the schoolyard. Identifying features: 155 centimeters tall, green eyes, light brown hair, lean build. She was dressed in a fur hooded coat, a knitted hat with a pom-pom, a white scarf and gloves. Special identifying features: wears a strawberry-themed scrunchie. If anybody has information on Katya's whereabouts, call the following numbers.